G'day, I'm back again to answer some of these questions that have been coming my way via the email and via LinkedIn. I got this one here from Adam Zamical. He said, what are your thoughts on what makes a dynamic and functional company board? I guess, Adam, the key thing here is I want to just put it into two parts. If we're talking about a listed public company board, the ASX actually has quite a number of recommendations as to how they would like to see boards in terms of diversity, etc., and independence. So, subject to being compliant with the ASX requirements and or recommendations in terms of diversification and independence, I like to see a board that actually adds value and is not just not being there to be a professional director. I don't really like professional directors as such. I mean, they're good, they fill the numbers up, but I'm looking for people who actually want to understand the business, do understand the business, add value to the business, passionate about the business, and are quite happy to step into committee roles, etc., as opposed to saying, look, I'm a board member of one of 22 boards and I go to 22 board meetings a quarter, and etc. There are those types of people who are in the business of being directors. I want directors who are in the business. That's the first thing. So I would say that at a listed entity level. So that's probably a bit more sophisticated at a listed entity level. In terms of just company directors of a startup or a new business who choose to have a corporate structure, the sort of directors I think that should be there should be people who actually represent the shareholders. That's the first thing, in a private sense. And equally, I would like to have on the board of those smaller companies and those startups, directors who can actually add value to the business, who are believe in the business and have some skill base. I don't just mean add value in terms of might know some people who they can put you in contact with or have some skill in finance or whatever. I'm talking about people who actually add value to the business, really add value to the business. In other words, they might bring a special skill to the organisation that the skill could not otherwise afford. So two types of boards: private startups, smaller companies, one set of type of directors for that organisation. The ASX listed entities, subject to them complying with all the ASX rules around having the right number of women on there, men, etc., sort of male, female, gender diversification, also having people who are non-professional directors on there. That's the key. The next question is from Graham McFarlane. He says, "Hi Mark, I'd like to know what you think mums and dads should be doing in terms of growing their wealth." Mums and dads, mums or dads, individually, together, or just people who aren't mums or dads, just anyone growing their wealth. I think the same process applies. It's a long-term game with very few turns in the road. So it doesn't necessarily just sit in your superannuation money that you put away. I think fine, have your money in your super, choose to actively manage it or not actively manage it, in other words, get someone else to manage it, and make sure that that manager is performing well and sits in the top quartile or the second quartile, and regularly review what that manager is doing with your money in your super. But it just puts super aside. In terms of building wealth, I think you should have a second string to your bow. And the second string to your bow should be you investing whatever spare money you have in terms of building your wealth beyond your super. Now, if you're a homeowner, my view on the world is that you should be paying off your home as fast as you possibly can, because it's the most tax-effective way of investing any spare cash you have. So that means working out a program whereby you can pay down your principal amount in your mortgage at a faster rate than the schedule requires you to do, that the bank has set for you or the Yellow Brick Road sets for you. So if, for example, the schedule we set for you on your home loan is that you've got to pay down $2,000 a month for the next 25 or 30 years, I'm suggesting to pay down $2,100, $2,200, $2,300. There are various techniques to do this. Reduce your monthly payments, turn them into fortnightly payments, because there's more fortnightly payments in a month than there is one monthly payment, so there's a few more days extra. And every time you reduce the principal, interest is calculated on a daily basis. So the lender calculates interest on your 30-year loan every single day and charges you that interest at the end of the month. So if you can pay, the more money you can have in your mortgage account put in your mortgage account, like your wages or whatever spare money you don't need, the less principal that you owe to the lender, which means the less interest that gets calculated every day, which means the less amount of interest that gets charged at the end of the month, which means over the 25-30 period, the less interest you pay. So bottom line is you end up paying your loan off faster. Now the way you build wealth, why I'm saying this is an effective way of building wealth is because you could actually decide, okay, no, I won't pay my loan down fast, so what I'll do is I'll take the excess money I have and put it in the bank and I'll earn interest. Well, that's flawed because you earn interest, maybe 1.5%. Inflation is 1.5%, so already net you've made nothing. And on top of that, you're now net nil, but you've got to pay tax on your 1.5%. You don't get a tax deduction for the inflation factor. So you're actually losing money. So it's, in a tax effective sense, the most efficient way to build wealth with your spare money, in my opinion, if you've got a mortgage, is to pay your home loan off faster. End of story. And by the way, when you sell your house, it's a principal place residence, so it's tax free. So I think that's one way of building wealth. If you don't have a home, the only other way to build wealth, as far as I'm concerned, is you've got to get into a really good savings plan, and you've got to get yourself into a home. Because you'll be buying stocks and shares through your superannuation, and that'll be either managed through somebody else or you might choose to manage it yourself. But that's where your stocks and shares over the next 30, 40 years will sit. The spare money you have, if you don't have a home, it should be saved towards getting a home. Now, you're going to say to me, oh, well, yeah, the bank's only paying me 1.5%. That's correct. But go find an alternative savings fund. So there are a lot of alternative savings style funds around. We have one called Smarter Money. Its current run rate is around 3.5% per annum after all fees and charges. So that's a very good return. You always should be chasing good yields in your cash savings. Don't plunk your money into the bank account because you're going to get a really low rate there. And the moment you have enough deposit, then make sure you're structured, like you've worked in a certain place for a year or 2 years, so you can actually go to a bank and actually qualify for a home loan. You keep all your rental payments, statements you're paying to the landlord, keep your credit clean, save as much money as you can in these savings accounts, so the excess money out of your wages after all your costs. Then go and borrow some money, and even if you're not buying where you want to live, buy where you can afford. So try to buy, if you want to live in Paddington in Sydney but you can't afford to buy there, go and rent there with your mate or two mates or your girlfriend, or go and stay with your mum. But the money should be used as soon as possible to buy a property in an area where you can afford to buy. So you might choose to buy, I don't know, for example, Lennox Heads. Now, is that a good place to buy? Well, I think Lennox Heads is a good place to buy, but you probably wouldn't necessarily want to buy in parts of Ballina, but so selectively buy in a place which has all the amenities, has a growth prospect, has things like hospitals and schools, etc., close to airports, good transport systems, within 20 k's of all the jobs. In other words, where the city is, it should be within 20 k's, and buy in those areas. And it doesn't matter where you start. You might end up having a portfolio of places in regional areas. Orange is another great example. Great hospitals out there, lots of doctors and lots of nurses, and great place to rent properties out there. And you buy in all these regional areas, and then eventually you sell them all and you go and buy yourself a home, then you go through the process of first start off with paying home loan off faster. That's the way you build wealth. Let your superannuation look after itself. And then when you become sort of confident enough, you might choose to self-manage your own super fund. But don't do that at the beginning, it's very difficult. Well, Rory, let's get this right. Rory Moutet says, Mark, what's the best path to take to get in front of key corporate decision makers? How do you break through? Is there an acceptable etiquette for LinkedIn approaches, or is this generally the wrong way of going about it? Well, I can give you a survey one. I'm sure there is science around this, and perhaps someone could come up with the answer that would be science around it, similarly to the fact that there's science around when's the best time to post on Instagram, when's the best time to post on various other social media. There's been a lot of research around it, but when it comes to LinkedIn and reaching out, your pitch, or getting someone to read your pitch, my view on that is I don't think you should be doing it during the day. Firstly, you should never do it during the day, because the corporate executives or whoever it is you're trying to pitch to, generally speaking, are sort of caught up in their own issues. I don't think you should be doing it during lunch hours, because generally speaking, corporate executives just actually want to have a real break. If they're going to have a break, if they decide to take a break, they actually want a real break. Generally speaking, someone like me, I just work through my lunch at my desk. Nighttime, definitely not. I think you should be putting it up at 11 o'clock at night or midnight, making a big deal of the time. You might sort of say something like, look, I know it's midnight, so that the person who's receiving it sort of gets to read, well, what are they doing at midnight? That sort of draws a little bit of attention, and make sure it's sitting in their LinkedIn account or in their email account, or whichever way you're trying to get to them, sitting there for them when they first wake up in the morning. And unfortunately, the general behaviour is we all read our stuff when we first wake up in the morning. We shouldn't, but we do. So, and in my case, I get up at 5 in the morning, sometimes earlier. You've got to get it, make sure it's sitting in my tray, LinkedIn tray, whatever tray it is, first thing in the morning, 5 a.m. And start off a little story like, look, I'm writing this at midnight. And just a few things I just annoy me, aggravate me, like really bad. Like, don't make out that you know me really well. Don't play that game where you sort of try to trap me as if you know me really well and I'm reading it because I'm thinking, oh shit, this person here knows me. Because what happens once I realise I don't know you, I really get annoyed with you because it's to me it's a bit simplistic and treats me like a dope. I don't think many people like that, but I know that I do get a lot of those LinkedIn pitches for business. But at the same time, I wouldn't go and say, oh dear Mr. Boris. I mean, just be respectful, straightforward, but tell them that you are writing this at midnight and that's something that you really want to talk to them about. Don't be desperate. Please don't be desperate in your language and in your tone and in your content. Desperation doesn't work. The plea for desperation, generally speaking, falls on deaf ears. I will tell you this. I try to read as many as I can, only because I'm in that business. But generally speaking, most guys I know don't read them. So don't feel as though you're, oh God, no one's reading my stuff. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my stuff? They must be reading everybody else's. I reckon 1 in a million of these that go out into the ether, into the system of LinkedIn and various other platforms, don't get 1 in a million get read. So there's a lot of luck involved. In terms of consistency, should you resend it? Keep resending it. Look, I think there's something in that. Keep resending it, as long as it's not offensive and annoying. I think resending it, but don't just resend the same one. Just say, look, I did send this to you the other day, so and so. You're probably really busy, but I wonder if you're interested in reading about this. I mean, I guess when they don't read the first time, they're probably unlikely to read the second time. But there's no harm in trying to resend stuff. And I'm going to tell you straight up, a picture sells better than anything. A picture, photograph, something is relevant. I mean, don't go send a photograph of Pamela Anderson and your picture be about something totally different. But a photograph, if there's some sort of visual impact in there, because it's, bearing in mind, someone like me, I get like hundreds and hundreds of these every week. I'm looking for, if I'm just flicking through them, I'm looking for what looks different. So, some visual, something that's different that will get me in. That's it. I've got another one here from Natasha Wells. I think it's a good one. Natasha says, hi Mark, how do you harness and communicate the culture of your company to every employee so they understand it, embrace it and deliver on it each and every time? Has your strategy or approach changed over the years with company growth and or your personal growth and development? I'm going to answer the second part first. Every business evolves in terms of culture. And culture is just a word. It describes people and the interactivity and the connectiveness of those people. And to some extent, the comfort of those people with each other. So as the people evolve, the culture evolves, and therefore the business evolves. So you are continually reassessing the culture of the business, and it's good to have some basic fundamental attributes of your culture, virtues of your culture, but you'll find that you'll be adding and subtracting virtues all the way through. That's certainly been my experience. In terms of building culture in the business, I've just recently done something like literally a couple of days ago. What I've done, generally speaking, the culture of a business is led by the group leadership team. My business has got a group leadership team of 5. Most businesses have, group executives, or in a smaller business, you might have 2 people leading the culture. Where there's a small number of people, where the ratio of the people in the group leadership team is small relative to the number of people who are part of the culture. Say in our business, downstairs we've got 175 people, we've got 5 people with GLT. You can't expect that GLT, that group leadership team, those 5 guys, they all men in my case, to be able to deliver on the culture to the 175 people down there. It's just impossible. Not only that, they don't have a good enough feel for it. So what I did 2 days ago was I actually appointed a new group within our organisation. Let's call it Culture Club. And what I did this on International Women's Day. And what I did is I actually appointed 5 women. And I didn't pick them out of the group leadership team. In fact, I picked these 5 women out of 5 different divisions of our business. We have 7 divisions in our business, but I picked them out of 5. They are women that I know are popular, well liked, hardworking, been here for a while, understand what we do, committed to the business, and they work in all sorts of different areas like compliance and marketing. They work in sort of mortgage finance, admin, etc. And what I've got them to do is actually put together a number of team building events to try and build the culture in our organisation. Now, team building for me is not grabbing the team that you're in and all going on a picnic or going out for a 3-legged race or going down to the restaurant having a few dinner or a few beers, whatever it is. It is that social part of it's important, but I think it's about actually doing some team events like hackathons or going to one of these escape rooms that are very popular in Sydney at the moment. I don't know about the other states, but very popular in Sydney. But doing something where you actually are competing against someone else as a group, as a team, and break it up into groups that are small enough to be manageable. Now, these 5 women that I've appointed will report directly to me. They do not report to the GLT. They've all got other parts of their job, and their job is their job in the Culture Club is actually to report to me on the culture, to act as a quasi HR resource within the business. That is having intelligence around what's going on in the business and continually talking to other people in the business, and having other people feel as though it's an open door going to talk to them. Then they can convene and meet and draw up and caucus around what needs to be done, and then feed that back to me. And then I'll feed it back to the GLT, and I'll feed it back to the business generally. So culture within a business is continually evolving. Never expect when the ratio of the number of people at the head of the business relative to the number of people within the business, where it's totally disproportionate, never expect the GLT to be able to run that culture. And always have fail-safe situations going like I have. I've remedied that problem that I just expressed to you of the ratio by having another 5 within the business, but spread across the business at various levels within the business as well. So, and look, people, generally speaking, my view on the world anyway, is that people, sometimes we pretend we like going to work, but the bottom line is the reason we go to work is that we go to work to earn some money so we can enjoy our lives. We don't, generally speaking, we try to convince ourselves, sometimes we try to convince ourselves we love our work and all that sort of stuff. That's great. I love my work. I do love my work because I'm so used to it. But really, if we probably had another choice, we might be doing something different. So we've got to try to do our very best to make the job interesting in the organisation for as many people as we possibly can. So try to spread all those functionalities of the business, and particularly when it comes to how the business performs, to other people. So culture, if they can build a good culture in business and sort of make it like it's a happy place to be, it's a good place to be, it's an inclusive place to be, it's diverse, we listen to everybody's, what they're worried about, what they think they can do to improve the business, generally speaking. If we build that culture, build everybody's confidence around each other and the connectiveness around each other, people enjoy coming to work a lot more. They won't think it's the best thing in their life, but they'll enjoy it a lot more. And by the way, at the end of the day, you should get better performance. And that's what it's about, getting better performance out of the business, particularly as businesses grow like mine has. Okay, Kylie Parker says, how has yoga helped your career and mental well-being, and what does a normal week look like in terms of social, business, health, etc., time commitments, top tips for efficiency? If you're talking about life efficiency, I'm not brilliant at that. But if you're talking about efficiency in terms of doing everything I can to make my workday more efficient, which is sort of how I structure my life, yoga is very important to me, or any form of exercise is very important to me. So I do any movement exercise, whether it be resistance work, lifting weights, or whether it be walking or running, or in my case I do a lot of boxing training. It's just movement though. or yoga, which is a bit more controlled movement and probably a little bit more structured movement, more structured. And for yoga to me is very isometric, so isometric movement, whether it's yoga or otherwise, is very good for me in terms of building the strength between the tendon and the joint and the muscle, as opposed to doing resistance work, which is more about the muscle, and heart-lung work, which is what you do when you do running. So I basically do this. I try to have exercise regime that actually helps build muscle, maintain muscle. One, just for general strength and the ability to get around. Two, I do exercise regime, which is largely done through yoga for doing isometric work, which helps my tendons and joints and helps lengthen the muscle, so I can actually move around. I don't pull muscles, I don't tear tendons. And then finally I do something every week that's good for my heart and lung, which is your aerobic stuff. I mean, that could be anything from skipping to boxing and swimming, whatever you want to do. That's my regime. There's no special sort of tricks going on. That's what I do. And I never get a proper balance every week, but over a year, I can say on average I balance it out pretty good. So that's my regime, and I do that whole process. I do it first thing in the morning. I always do it early in the morning. I find it I'm too buggered at the end of the day. I'll be fucked if I'm going to start, run around in the evening. I just can't do it. I just want to get home from work after work, and I've hassled the traffic, get home from work, eat my food, and just chill. Read a few emails or something like that, get ready for the next day. So my regime is early morning, do one of those three things, try to do something every day, give myself every week 1 day off, try and socialise a little bit with that. My social life is probably more around those exercise environments where I train with different people, mates, and that's sort of a bit of a social environment. Not a big drinker, so I don't really go and hang out in the pub, stuff like that. So that's my social, that's my life, that's my training regime, and my work regime is the balance, basically. I'm lucky, but two of my sons still live with me. I get to see them whenever they're around or whenever I'm around, so I can sort of always pop in and say hello to them. And the other two boys are on WhatsApp, so I keep my family environment pretty close to me. I'm always sort of following them, what they're doing, and we all got a common interest. We all like going to the footy. So that's probably enough social for me and enough family. Family and social are a mixed thing for me. I'm lucky they live with me, but I'm unlucky they live with me too. So there's a double-edged sword on that one. One of them staring at me right now. He's on the other side of the camera. So that's what I do. That's how it works. Don't know if it's going to work for you, but it works for me.